Did you check the organ donor box on the back of your driver's license? If you did, you might want to uncheck it because an apparently dead man just woke up while doctors were preparing to harvest his organs. No, I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm not talking about registered Democrat voters in the swing states. I'm talking about a real individual who really woke up, and it tells you a whole lot about our political confusion. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. President Trump has officially worked at McDonald's 15 minutes longer than Kamala Harris ever has. Before we get to that extremely important story, we have to discuss the balance of nature. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles. Balance of Nature, fruits and veggies. It's the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, freeze dries them, turns them into powder, and then puts them into a capsule. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle, has no intention to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It is intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. I love Balance of Nature. You know, I hit the road a fair bit, especially this time of year, and it is great to know, even as I'm hitting, maybe a little fast food here and there, not necessarily getting all my fruits and veggies. It's great to know that I can count on Balance of Nature, get those fruits and veggies. Right now, go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles, Knowles, for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. You will get a free bottle of fiber and spice. Very simple. You go right now, pull over your car, stop what you're doing, put down the work. You go to balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. We'll get to all the other stuff. Trump works at McDonald's and the Yankees clinched the American League Championship and all the political significance of all of that, latest in the campaign. But the story that I can't get out of my head since I read about it on Friday is a man who was apparently dead, who was being wheeled in to have his organs harvested, woke up. And it's even creepier than that because he showed signs that he was alive and waking up long before the doctors finally gave up on taking all of his organs. And the doctors downplayed all of it. And they said, no, never mind. No big deal. Nothing to see here. This is TJ Miller, whose family had this to say.
That's when they were told he was a registered organ donor. To honor his wishes, the next 2 days were spent testing TJ's organs to see what was viable, including a cardiac catheterization to test his heart.
And during his honor walk, his eyes started opening up, and we kind of, he was tracking. His eyes were tracking, looking around. And we were told, by the ICU supervisor that it was just reflexes. It was just a normal thing.
TJ was then taken into the organ retrieval surgery.
Probably about an hour into, they come out and got us, and the doctor did, and told us that he wasn't ready, that he had woke up. But we also hadn't been told that during his heart catheterization that morning that he woke up then. And because if we'd have known that, then clearly we would have known he wasn't brain dead.
Rohr was told to take TJ home and make him comfortable as he wouldn't live long. Rohr's been caring for her brother for 3 years now.
And he made several attempts to, hey, I'm here. But it was kind of ignored.
It was kind of ignored. This guy is moving around. He apparently was moving on the operating table. The doctor said, oh, that's just reflexes. He opens his eyes. His eyes are tracking things around the room. They say, oh, no, it's just reflexes. No big deal. Give me those organs. Then finally, it's so obvious that the doctors say, okay, all right, I guess we can't do this now. There was apparently controversy. People were quitting. They said, we're not going to do this. And then they finally spilled the beans to the family. According to Natasha Miller here, said he was moving around kind of thrashing around on the bed. And then when we went over there, you could see he had tears coming down. He was crying visibly. This 36-year-old guy who's now been alive for 3 years since he nearly had his organs harvested. There have been investigations into some of these abuses. Is this the only time this has ever happened? Not quite. Here's just one piece of testimony before a government committee by just one expert.
It's not infrequent that something comes up around the donor and whether or not the donor's dead. And the problem is that we've got 40 years where there has been no oversight at all of the OPOs.
The Kentucky Attorney General's office says they are now looking into this case.
So the OPO is the Association of Organ Procurement Organizations. Dr. Robert Cannon, you just heard, that guy who you just heard from is an expert at Vanderbilt. Dr. Robert Cannon is a transplant surgeon at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He described a similar incident during a congressional hearing. Quote, we actually were in the operating room. We had actually opened the patient and were in the process of preparing their organs, at which point the ventilator triggered. And so the anesthesiologist at the head of the table spoke up and said, hey, I think this patient might have just breathed. If the patient breathes, that means they're not brain dead. Now, at this point, according to Cannon, a representative from the Association of Organ Procurement Organizations wanted to proceed anyway. Said, yeah, maybe he breathed or whatever, but go get those organs out before he breathes too much. So he goes on, he says, we were kind of shocked that an OPO person would have so little knowledge about what brain death means that they would say, oh, you should just go ahead. And we thought, no, we're not going to take any risk that we murder a patient, because that's what it would be if the patient was alive. So what's at issue here is this question of brain death. Brain death is kind of fake news. Brain death is a concept that came about in the late 1960s. Harvard had a committee, an ad hoc committee, that investigated the matter of brain death. When does death really occur? And they said, well, there's this thing. Well, they didn't quite call it brain death, but it's what led to the concept of brain death. This idea that there's an irreversible coma, that someone, the lights might be on, but no one's home. There's no cognitive activity. And if there's no cognitive activity, even if machines are keeping your organs alive, you're not really alive. Brain death, however, is pretty controversial. There was a New England Journal of Medicine article in 2008 that noted this uncomfortable fact that is going to make a lot of people start to question whether or not they should check that box on their driver's license. The uncomfortable fact is that organs are harvested from living people by definition. The New England Journal of Medicine says, quote, the uncomfortable conclusion to be drawn from this literature is that although it may be perfectly ethical to remove vital organs for transplantation from patients who satisfy the diagnostic criteria of brain death, the reason it is ethical cannot be that we are convinced they are really dead. At worst, this is still the New England Journal, at worst, this ongoing reliance on the conflation of brain death, quote unquote, with real death, this reliance suggests that the medical profession has been gerrymandering the definition of death to carefully conform with conditions that are most favorable for transplantation. At best, the rule has provided misleading ethical cover that cannot withstand careful scrutiny. I used to check the box on my driver's license. Some years ago, I unchecked the box. Why did I uncheck the box? Not even because I'd given all that much thought to brain death. I think most people have never really considered it for more than 2 seconds. They believe, because the medical industry has gerrymandered the definition of death, that brain death really is death. But brain death isn't really death. When you're brain dead, you're still really alive. And if you're a religious person, this raises all sorts of questions. Even if you're not religious per se, but you just have any sort of philosophical thought whatsoever, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, at what point does my soul separate from my body? At what point am I really dead? I untick the box, though, for an even simpler reason. I don't trust the ethics of the medical industry anymore. And I unticked the box before COVID. I think after COVID, when the medical industry lied to so many people, when the medical industry lied about that virus, about how to prevent the virus, about the risks of the virus, about the 6 feet and the masks and the vaccines and all the rest of it, a lot of people question the ethics of them. I'm not saying they questioned the technical proficiency of the medical industry. This is where a lot of the libs will try to trip up conservatives. They'll say, what, you don't trust modern medicine? Well, what happens when you get a disease? You're going to go to the doctors. You're going to trust their advice. You think you know better than the doctors? No, I'm not saying we know better than the doctors most of the time when it comes to the technical aspects of disease advancement and treatment. What I seriously doubt, is the ethics of the medical profession. And this kind of case, which is not a one-off case, drives that home. The medical genius elites are very good at harvesting organs. It's impressive that we can harvest organs from people and transplant them to other people and have them work a lot of the time. However, their ethical education has not kept up with their technical education. Their ethical education is probably worse than a fifth grader 50 years ago. And so, as the New England Journal of Medicine is saying, what they've done is they've used euphemisms. They've changed the meaning of words, just as we see the libs do so much these days. Undocumented Americans to mean illegal alien, or a trans woman to mean a man. They use these euphemisms, they use these words to persuade you that living is really death. And they do this for the utilitarian reason that they believe, well, look, you're going to die anyway, or if you don't die, you're going to have some brain damage, and you're going to be a burden to society. You're going to require a lot of care. So better to just kill you than to and then use your organs for someone who might live, than to try to give you the fullest medical treatment. That's not a scientific judgment or a medical judgment. That's an ethical judgment. And these people are not qualified to make those ethical judgments. The uncomfortable reality is what kills you, what kills the organ donor, is retrieving the organs. That's what actually leads to the death. And that creates an ethical question that the modern technocratic genius utilitarian libs who run our institutions do not want us to think about. But is it any wonder that a medical industry and a liberal establishment that can't differentiate between a man and a woman, a medical industry that will put little boys on cross-sex hormones because they don't know the difference between a man and a woman, that same medical industry can't tell the difference between life and death? No surprise whatsoever. Now, when you do know the difference between winning and losing, when you do have a little bit of insight and predictive ability, you ought to consider checking out Prize Picks. Get the Prize Picks app, use code Knowles. Folks, I want to tell you about Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. No complicated drafts, no season-long commitments. For me, I struggle with all that kind of sports stuff, and I keep it very simple. Here's something I love. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your picks are still live. It's the kind of common sense protection we conservatives can appreciate. Sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. This bonus is yours just for joining, regardless of your lineup's performance. Mr. Davies, how's Prize Picks going?
It's going great, and this is the Nostradamus Prize Picks for this week. Michael, what's your favorite part of Los Angeles?
I don't know.
That's right, Justin Herbert, baby. Justin Herbert, 197 yards against the worst defense in football. More than book it. Next, you like Catholics and opera music, which is why you're going to love the next pick. Justin Tucker, 2 field goals, just 2 field goals. That goes through. Next, Baker Mayfield, more than 14.5 yards. He's averaging 21.5. Oh my gosh, it's like basically free, Michael. And finally, Mike Evans, more than 53.5 yards. That's basically 1 catch from Baker Mayfield, and that will pay you and all of the listeners 10-1, $10 gets you 100, death, taxes, and Nostradamus Prize Picks hitting. Count on it, Monday Night Football.
What does that have to do with opera? Anyway, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code Knowles, get $50 instantly when you play $5. Code Knowles on the Prize Picks app. Speaking of the trans issue, Josh Seiter, who was a contestant on The Bachelorette, I'm told, apparently has been faking a transgender transition. Here he is in his own words.
And I think a lot of trans women are turned on at the thought of themselves being women. Guess what? It doesn't magically make them women. It doesn't mean we have to accept that they're women. They are simply men turned on at the thought of themselves being women. That's great. We live in a free country. You can do whatever you want, but don't make your fetish my truth. I don't have to accept it. To go to the second part of your question, how did I come up with this? I was talking with some friends, and we said this is patently false. Men do not magically become women. I said, let's look at the medical literature and what it says. It says that trans people don't have to transition, don't have to have gender dysphoria, don't have to get surgery, and don't have to get hormones. If they feel they are a different gender than their bio-sex, then they are trans and they are valid. And I said, understandably, this is ridiculous. Then I can present exactly how I am, and I can be trans and valid if I say that's my gender identity. And so I said, let me prove how ridiculous this is using reductio ad absurdum by being trans for 5-6 months, and hopefully people will understand then how ridiculous this is.
Okay, so he pretended to be for 6 months, and now he's hoping people understand how ridiculous this is. It's a funny troll. It's clever. I see how he came up with it. However, people are not going to see how ridiculous this is as a result of him pretending to be. Because it is not possible to pretend to be, because is pretend. So it's not, the people, first of all, if the story even gets out there, I'm not sure that you're going to hear about it far beyond, that was Alex Stein's show or maybe my show, but you're not going to hear about it far beyond that. Even if people do, there's no difference between what that guy did and what any person did. It's all pretend. It's by definition pretend. So you can't pretend to be, it's just called being, which is to say it's just playing pretend. Also, is not the end that the libs are seeking. Like gay marriage, like the whole sexual revolution, is just a stop along the way to an even more radical end. And you're beginning to see the next stage of the sexual revolution for the left, which is not men pretending to be women or women pretending to be men. It's the abolition of sexual difference altogether. It's everyone becoming a kind of formless, sexless blob. It's sterility and it's everyone looking just kind of androgynous. It's pretty girls making themselves look ugly and men making themselves look effeminate and everyone just looking like Pat from SNL. You know, just everyone looking like this type of person where you can't tell, are they man, are they woman? And the joke on the old SNL sketch was that you should be able to tell whether the person is a man or a woman, but sometimes you can't. The reality of it now is that it is by design that you can't tell if a person is a man or a woman. Because ultimately, the real end of is transcending humanity. It's called transhumanism among some of the weirdo ideologues out there. But you hear it spoken of in the mainstream, that we're going to upload our consciousness, that we're going to live forever somehow, we're going to become cyborgs, we're going to enhance our bodies through the fourth industrial revolution to meld with technology so that sexual difference won't even really matter anymore. The left-wing writer and ideologue Yuval Harari says we're going to become homo deus, not Homo sapiens. We're going to evolve. We're going to consciously create a new kind of creature. We're going to make ourselves evolve beyond that to Homo Deus, to man as a kind of God. So that's really what they're after in the long run. It begins not even with gay marriage or the sexual revolution. It goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden when the serpent tells Eve, ye shall be as gods. And it's that pride, which is the original sin, that leads people to do this, to transcend the natural limitations of humanity, be they the moral limitations that you saw blown up during the sexual revolution, be they the anthropological, or even the political limitations that you see in the institution of marriage, followed by the anthropological limitations that you see in the difference between men and women. Now you're seeing it blown up. Just the humanity itself is seen to be an impediment to, paradoxically, to humanity's own flourishing and development. Now, speaking of a culture beyond parody, a U.S. Marine has just been booted off of a flight, a Delta flight. And I love Delta. I had one issue with Delta one time. They made it right. So I've always had a good experience with Delta. But this is absolutely insane. A U.S. Marine was booted off a Delta flight for wearing a pro-veteran t-shirt. This U.S. Marine, a lady Marine even more egregious to kick a lady off a flight, Catherine Banks, a 22-year veteran of the U.S. Marines, was on a Delta flight at San Francisco Airport, of course, first red flag. She was there going to visit family, and she wore a t-shirt that said, "Do not give in to the war within, end veteran suicide." Is that not the least controversial message you've ever heard in your life? Servicemen and women should not kill themselves. This is a major problem. A lot of veterans kill themselves. A 22-year Marine veteran is saying, hey, veterans, don't kill yourself. Have hope, don't despair. Let's support our troops. Let's support our veterans. This should be as uncontroversial a message as there is. She was asked to leave. A Delta, according to the New York Post, the flight attendant came up and said, the shirt you're wearing is threatening. So you need to get off the plane. So the woman, now this is her recounting the story, said, are you kidding me? She said, I'm a Marine Corps vet. I'm going to visit my sister. I've been in the Marine Corps 22 years. I worked for the Air Force for 15 years. I'm going to visit her. Shirt says, just don't give in to the war within. And then the guy, according to this woman, says, I don't care about your service and I don't care about her service. The only way you're going to get back on the plane is if you take it off right now. So she said, okay, well, I'm not even wearing a bra. Is there some, how do I do? They kicked her off the plane. Delta says they're dealing with this. This was a big mistake. However, you see a lot of these mistakes these days. You see a lot of people. I just heard about it. I was on a flight, spoke to a woman, lovely woman, who told me her son was at a very fancy, famous prep school, and her son faced severe disciplinary action, could have been expelled because he had a thin blue line flag in his room. And someone saw it on a Zoom meeting, a thin blue line flag, just to support our cops flag. You see a lot of these issues. Kids being kicked out of school. Remember that young kid was threatened with disciplinary action for having a Gadsden flag. This is an early American Revolutionary War flag. If this Marine Corps veteran had been wearing a pride flag on a Delta flight, obviously there'd be no problem. She'd probably be celebrated. They might give her a free drink. And the pride flag is legitimately scandalous. I don't want to seem like I'm clutching my pearls or I'm the church lady here, but you take your kids out somewhere, your little kids, and they see the pride flag, which is just draped everywhere in cities in America today. Your kids are going to ask questions about that. And it is legitimately scandalous to them. Because what are you supposed to say? Oh, some men think they're women and some women think they're men, and you're going to put that. That's legitimately scandalous. The pride flag legitimately probably should not be permitted in civilized spaces. If you're wearing a pride flag t-shirt on an airline, you probably shouldn't be allowed to board that airline. Or you should have to put a sweatshirt on or something. That's scandalous. We don't want that. I'm all for limits. I'm all for standards. I wrote a whole book about it called Speechless. We're going to get the bell. Thank you. So I'm all for that. But what we're doing now is we're saying, pride flag, scandalous stuff, all sorts of obscenity. You should have that in public. But a U.S. Marine wearing a shirt that says, hey, Marines, take care of yourselves. Have hope. Don't despair. That's not allowed. That's a greater scandal than the Marine shirt or the pride flag. We got to talk about these things. I want to talk to you about Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. Stop overpaying for data that you will never use. With Pure Talk, you can choose how much data you actually want and save. For just $35 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data, plus mobile hotspot on America's most dependable 5G network when you switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk. On a qualifying plan, you'll get 1 year free of DailyWire Plus Insider. That's access to the library of DW Plus series, movies, documentaries, including Lady Balders, What is a Woman, Mr. Burcham, and mark your calendars for October 28th, when you will get exclusive access to Matt Walsh's latest bombshell, Am I Racist? Plus, uncensored ad-free daily shows, 1 year free of our kids platform, Bent Key, and a free Leftist Tears tumbler. The only way you can get this special offer is by going to puretalk.com/Knowles or call and mention my name. Stop overpaying for your cell phone plan. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, KNWLES today. Switch to a qualifying plan. Get 1 year free of DailyWire Plus Insider. That is puretalk.com right now. puretalk.com/Knowles. Get my cell phone plan. Really, really love it. puretalk.com/Knowles. I sat down for a magnificent episode of the Yes or No Game with my friend and American heartthrob since the 1980s, Kirk Cameron. Check out this teaser.
Kamala Harris is black.
That's going to get me into trouble.
I keep getting conflicting reports.
This is what time is it? What day is it? Now, the politically correct version of this episode will be available on the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. We had to remove some stuff or YouTube would nuke the channel. However, if you want to see the full uncensored episode with 3 questions that were too spicy for certain big tech platforms, you can go to DailyWire Plus. That is exclusively for members on DailyWire Plus. Go to dailywire.com/shop to get all the new yes or no's. And so you can get the all new yes or no politics, philosophy, and religion expansion pack today. Speaking of military operations, Kamala Harris, she just keeps shooting herself in the foot. Kamala Harris was on the campaign trail. She was asked by one of the Democrat Intifada, the keffiyeh-wearing pro-Palestine leftists, what she thinks of the Israeli genocide of the Palestinians. So that was the premise of the question. And Kamala actually agreed with the protester that Israel is committing a genocide of Palestinians.
I know what you're speaking of. I want the ceasefire.
But what about the genocide?
I want the war to end.
What about the genocide?
And I respect your right to speak, but I am speaking right now.
Yeah!
What about genocide? Billions of dollars.
So
2,000 people dead. 19,000 children are dead. You better call them. 19,000 children are dead. You won't call them genocide. I love you.
So, listen, what he's talking about, it's real. And so that's not the subject that I came to discuss today, but it's real, and I respect his voice. So listen, here we are. You all have the right and the ability to have opportunity available to you at each step of the way.
Okay, so there you have it. What he's talking about is real. I didn't come here to talk about that today, but I respect his voice. What he's talking about is real. What's he talking about? He is saying repeatedly that the state of Israel is committing a genocide of the Palestinians. And, his evidence of it is all of the dead Palestinians as a result of the war that followed the October 7th attack. Kamala Harris's view is now officially more radical than the view of the supposed Palestinian state. If you go to the website, now, we have to recognize there is no such thing as a Palestinian state, but there are entities that claim to be Palestinian states. They have a website. The Palestinian state, so-called, admits on its website, quote, despite the displacement of more than 1 million Palestinians in 1948 and the displacement of more than 200,000 Palestinians, majority of them to Jordan after the 1967 war, the Palestinian world population was 14 million by the end of 2022, which means that the number of Palestinians in the world has doubled about 10 times since the Nakba being the ethnic displacement of the Palestinian Arabs at the founding of Israel. And more than half of them lived in historical Palestine by the end of 22. The number of Palestinians in the world more than doubled 10 times since the beginning of what these people are calling a genocide. I think by definition that means there hasn't been a genocide. And I'm not even particularly partisan or extreme on the issue of the Israel-Palestine conflict. I recognize it's a complex issue, one of the most complex and thorny political issues in foreign policy. However, I've said many times, it's a difficult conflict because the rational political goal for each side of the conflict is the ethnic cleansing of the other. And some people hear that and they think that ethnic cleansing means genocide. It doesn't. Those are different things. Ethnic cleansing means the displacement of a people from an area. Genocide means the destruction of the people. So those are different things. They're not totally unrelated, but they're different. And for Israel, especially after the October 7th attack, they cannot tolerate the security risk of an independently governed Palestinian state that close on its border. They can't tolerate that. I don't think anybody thinks they could. And in terms of the Gaza and the so-called state of Palestine and Hamas, they overtly say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They are overtly calling for the ethnic cleansing and even the genocide of the Jews. So that is very clear. However, it just obviously isn't a genocide. Part of the evidence here is the Palestinian population has exploded. That doesn't happen during genocides. But the other reason is, if Israel wanted to commit a genocide, it could. Not to put it too bluntly, but they obviously could. They have all of the military advantage here, and they're backed up by the global hegemon. So they could. They haven't done that. I bring it up not even to get into the Israel-Palestine issue, to point out how radical Kamala Harris is. She knows this is a bad issue for her. This is why she said she didn't want to talk about it. But the official position of Kamala Harris right now, as she just stated, you heard it with your own ears, is the state of Israel is committing a genocide. Okay, well, lady, first of all, that's a pretty audacious claim. But if that's what you really believe, how can you continue to support the state of Israel? She is currently the vice president of the United States. Her administration is arming Israel and has been arming Israel to the teeth for years. If she seriously believes that the state of Israel is committing a genocide, that means that Kamala Harris is admitting to being complicit in genocide. Does she really believe that? The only conclusion that one can draw is that this woman doesn't know anything. She is woefully ignorant and not nearly intelligent enough to be the president of the United States. Or that she's wickedly evil and is happily, consciously helping to commit a genocide. And in charity to Kamala Harris, I think it's the former. I think she has no idea what she's talking about. I think she has no idea what she believes about anything. And I don't think she has the mental faculty to be the president, or really even a U.S. senator, or maybe even a local mayor or dog catcher. She's just not, I'm not saying there's no place for her in society. I'm sure there's something she can do, but this ain't it. Major, major blunder that reveals her complete inadequacy for the job. Now, speaking of the Harris campaign, Kamala Harris has an agenda for black men. Kamala Harris has rolled out an agenda for black men that got her into a little bit of trouble because her campaign plan, her agenda for black men promised, quote, 1 million loans that are fully forgivable to black entrepreneurs, capital B black entrepreneurs, and others to start a business. Education, training, and mentorship programs that help black men get good paying jobs, legalizing recreational marijuana and creating opportunities for black Americans to succeed in this new industry, and helping black men provide care for their aging parents. Do you catch what's maybe a little bit of a problem about this plan, this agenda for black men? It's probably illegal, is the problem with it. She's coming out, she's saying, yeah, the government is going to discriminate in favor of black men. But if you discriminate in favor of one race, that means necessarily that you're discriminating against other races. So another way to write the Kamala agenda for black men is, we are going to deny loans, fully forgivable loans, to white people and Hispanic people and Asian people. We are going to deny education, training, and mentorship to whites, Asians, and Hispanics so that whites, Asians, and Hispanics have a harder time getting good-paying jobs. Then the marijuana one is my favorite one. She goes, yeah, all you black guys, you love just like smoking, right? Yeah, we'll give you a lot more if you want. Whatever, vote for me, please. What kind of opinion does this woman have of black men? Yeah, hey, I'll give you guys some fat if you give me your vote. Come on, isn't that what you blacks like? How outrageous. That's it. Right below we'll get you good paying jobs, we'll give you educational training, we'll help you start a business. Yeah, we'll give you a bunch of drugs. If all that other stuff didn't work, you want some drugs, black guys? Good grief. Then after that, and we'll help black men provide care for their aging parents. Meaning we will not help white people and Hispanics and Asians to care for their parents. So the Harris campaign realized this was not a good look. And they announced on Monday that it's an agenda for everyone. Hold on. It's an agenda for black men or it's an agenda for everyone? Well, that phrase "and others" is doing a lot of work. We've got this program for black entrepreneurs and others. Well, if it's for others, then it's not for black entrepreneurs, and it's for everybody. But it obviously is for black entrepreneurs. And this is the problem for the left. The left very much wants to discriminate on the basis of race. Very much wants to, and has enshrined that in law, especially in civil rights law. However, the left also has cynically used the notion of equal protection and non-discrimination to advance their agenda. So they also have to say we will not discriminate on the basis of race, and there's just an irreconcilable contradiction here. So they're going to use little weasel phrases like "and others" or whatever to advance what they really want, which is racial discrimination against whites, against Asians, slightly in favor of Hispanics, and especially in favor of black people. they're going to use that kind of weasel language to pretend that they believe in some kind of racial equality. Why do they have to do this? Why is Kamala going so far as to say, hey, black guys, we'll give you drugs? Because the Harris campaign is hemorrhaging support among black men, according to many polls for many months now. Polling shows Harris has 12 to 15% less black voter support than Joe Biden did in 2020. So they say, okay, we'll give black people all this stuff. And then the lawyers come in, they say, hey, that's illegal. And they say, okay, well, actually, it's going to be available to everyone on a, quote, race-neutral basis. Okay, well, now your specific appeal to black men looks even more cynical. Is that going to help you pick up that 12 to 15%? Seems unlikely. So then now the Kamala campaign is trying to win, especially among black voters, by going to church. The Kamala campaign has shown up to church for the first time, I think, ever. Here's an article from NBC News. Harris goes to church, highlighting the absence of religion in the 2024 campaign. In an increasingly secular country, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are highlighting their personal faiths less than other recent candidates. But, over the weekend, Harris went to New Birth Missionary Baptist Church outside Atlanta, and Tim Walz went to Victorious Believers Ministries in Saginaw, Michigan. All right. This is a scandalous headline. Scandal seems to be the theme of the show. It's a scandalous headline that it's headline news when political candidates do go to church. Used to be headline news if they didn't go to church. Now it's headline news if they do go to church. A little reminder that Christians, specifically Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, and more traditional Protestants, believe that it is an obligation to go to church on Sunday. It's not something good that you can do, and maybe it's helpful to you, and, man, it's kind of nice. No. Christians traditionally believe it is an obligation to go to church. Harris and Walz decide they're finally going to start going to church. Why? Because they're losing voters in Georgia and Pennsylvania and Michigan, and so they're trying to shore that up. They're going to cynically use religion. I see no evidence that Harris or Walz have ever really been practicing Christians. I mean, Harris obviously comes from a household that was not Christian. I think her mother was Hindu. But now I guess she's sort of pays lip service to Christianity, but obviously contradicts non-negotiable aspects of the political expression of Christianity, notably on killing little babies and on marriage and on a lot of stuff. So what do we say? People are going to criticize the Republicans here. They say, well, Trump's not the biggest churchgoer either. Yeah, maybe he's not the biggest churchgoer. It seems like he's become a lot more religious since nearly being killed. He talks about God a lot more than he used to. But even before that, President Trump came out with the Bible. Remember the Trump Bible? And a lot of people criticized him for that. Or President Trump, during all the unrest in D.C., held up a Bible in front of St. John's Church, which the Libs wanted to burn down. And he's invoked God in a number of speeches. And he said, we're going to make America godly. We got to turn back to God. And people will point to him and say, well, Trump, you're not the most pious man. You're not the most holy man in the world. I think, yeah, so first of all of us are fallen. All of us commit sin. But even if Trump really didn't believe it, and I think he really sort of is becoming a bit more religious now, even if it were all just cynical, there's a great line from La Rochefoucauld, which is that hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue. Simply by saying, we think the Bible is a good thing. We want more people to read the Bible. Simply by saying, we think churches are a good thing. We don't want the churches to get burned down. Simply by saying, we need a country that prays, that recognizes we're one nation under God, even if the person is not the most pious. That is in itself a good thing because it is acknowledging an objective standard and a good objective standard, namely that God is God and we should worship him. That it's become fashionable to be an atheist in recent decades. However, that is going to pass away. I can promise you one thing. Even if you don't believe, you're not the most religious person, you don't go to church every Sunday, I can promise you, atheism will pass away. God will not pass away. God will win. Even if you're a total secularist, if you just read history, God is going to win. Okay, God keeps coming back. And the fashionable fad of atheism crops up every so often and it falls away. Get on the right side here. In 6 days, the decade's #1 grossing documentary is going to come exclusively to DailyWire Plus. That is right. Am I Racist? Starring Matt Walsh. Arriving on Monday, October 28th. You will need a DailyWire Plus membership to watch it. Making a movie and getting it into theaters across the country is a monumental and costly endeavor. We are doing the work. We're doing the work. You got to do the work, as Matt informs us in the movie. But we can't do it without your support. Head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code DEI for 35% off your new membership. Get ready for Am I Racist streaming exclusively on Daily Wire Plus Monday, October 28th. My favorite comment on Friday is from Adam Howard 4775, who says, Tim Walz couldn't be here tonight, but don't worry because he'll say that he was. So true. So that's a really way to excuse, a fabulous way to excuse anything that Walz does or does not do on the campaign trail. You can just lie about it. Is religion ready for a comeback? Just building off this point we were making about Kamala and Walz going to church. Excellent article in the New York Times. I don't say that very often, but there's an excellent article in the New York Times by Ross Douthat, who is the best columnist at the New York Times. Is the world ready for a religious comeback? The heyday of the new atheism in Western life, when anti-God tracts by Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens bestrode bestseller lists, did not arrive because brilliant new arguments for God's existence were suddenly discovered. Rather, it was because of specific events and deeper forces making the time ripe. This, I think, is the key here. I highly recommend you read the whole column. Douthat is saying, we might be ready for a religious comeback because the cause of our fashionable atheism that's really dominated for the last 20 years, it's starting in the early to mid 2000s and petering out probably 5 or 6 years ago, beginning to wane. It didn't come about because of some philosophical discovery or some theological insight or even some material scientific discovery. It came about because of passions owing to particular historical events. That's why it happened. Douthat's making the point. The reason the new atheism hit was not because Christopher Hitchens made some good argument. He didn't really make any good arguments. Certainly didn't make any new arguments, or Richard Dawkins or anyone. It's because of the 9/11 attacks. Because 9/11, when Muslim radicals decided to fly planes into buildings, that made people skeptical of extreme religion, serious religion. Now, of course, different religion than our religion. Islam is a rather different religion than Christianity. But the atheists and the secularists seized upon it opportunistically so that they could attack religion broadly and really specifically Christianity. So it was about that. It was about the passion that came out of that. It was because of the much publicized sex scandal in the Catholic Church. Of course, the Catholic Church has not experienced, all sex scandals are horrific and terrible. I'm not downplaying any of it. But the Catholic Church has not experienced sexual abuse at a higher rate than any other religious group. It's actually lower than certain religious groups, and it's about half the rate of public school teachers. Again, that wasn't publicized either, so that made people skeptical of religion. In any case, the new atheism was about passions that came from particular historical events. And if passion and history can lead us into certain bad ideas, that means that passion and history might be able to lead us out of certain bad ideas. I think we're seeing passions aroused by certain historical events right now, leading us back to God. For starters, the ideology, the fact that the supposed elites and geniuses in our country are trying to put your kid on puberty blockers, your kid, lead him into all sorts of probably shorten his life, based on science against religion. That's going to turn people against science, and it's going to turn people back toward religion. Not that I think ultimately there's any real conflict. What else? The decay of the American empire. The fact that we were promised by the atheists, if we just embrace atheism, we'll be more powerful, we'll be stronger, we'll be more rational than ever. We become much less rational, and we become much less powerful. How about the self-undermining of the whole scientific endeavor? The fact that our so-called genius scientists are now telling us things that are patently false. They're telling us men can become women. They're telling us babies aren't babies. And they're telling us that living people are dead and they try to harvest their organs. The self-undermining of the scientific endeavor, when you take God out of it and necessarily weaken morality, that is going to do it too. Kind of hopeful. I know conservatives aren't supposed to be hopeful. We're supposed to say everything's getting worse and it's going to get much, significantly more worse as we keep going. I agree with Douthat. I think the world is ready for a religious comeback. I think that Tocqueville's observation in Democracy of America is probably right, that America is either going to take religion more seriously. America might even become Catholic, as Tocqueville pointed out. You're seeing an outsized influence of Catholicism. At the very least, we can say traditional religion, or it's going to give up religion altogether. But I don't know. I feel kind of hopeful. Call me crazy. Now, speaking of comebacks, a really important story. The New York Yankees have just clinched the American League Championship. This is the first time that has happened in, 15 years now? It's the 41st AL Championship. Now the Yankees are hoping for their 28th World Series win. Why do I care about this? Why am I wearing my little Yankee pin today? Because sports are a serious thing. I was thinking to myself, why do I like the Yankees so much? I'm not the most athletic guy. I don't follow sports all that much. Why? I follow baseball, but specifically I really follow the Yankees. Why? Because not all sports are made equal. Is it just because I'm a New Yorker? No, I'm not. I don't follow the Rangers. I don't follow the Islanders. I don't follow the Knicks. I don't follow the Giants. I don't follow the Jets. No, baseball. Why do I like baseball? Because baseball is complex. Baseball requires skill and knowledge. Baseball is at once individualistic. It's just this battle between the pitcher and the batter. But baseball is also in the context of a team. Unlike, say, football, it's pretty much all team. Unlike tennis and golf, it's pretty much all individual. Baseball combines the two, as any human life must, as any polity must. It's complex. It's not soccer, very simple. I know some people like soccer. It's very simple. Anyone can pick up a soccer ball and play it. Baseball, you got to know something. You've got to develop certain specific skills. Why the Yankees? I'll tell you why. Because the Yankees, unlike other sports franchises, are clean cut. They have rules. They used to not let their players wear beards back when George Steinbrenner was alive. They're clean cut. They're a lot of teams are prone to scandals. The Yankees weren't really prone to all that many scandals. Even during the height of steroids, you never saw Derek Jeter caught up in steroids. You never really saw Jeter stumbling out of nightclubs at night. Okay, today, same thing could be said of Aaron Judge or any of these. These guys have three things that I think are really important in sports: tradition, integrity, victory. Long storied tradition. The most winning franchise ever in the history of sports. They have integrity. They don't get caught up in all sorts of crazy scandals. And they win. Okay, man, they win. And that's good. So I know some people hate the Yankees, and it's okay if you can hate the Yankees. It's fine. But all sports should emulate baseball, and sports teams should emulate the Yankees. Even if you hate the Yankees and even if you find baseball boring. Because it's not all the same. It's not all created equal. And their sports are really important to a polity, the games are really important to how a society understands itself. And so if we play games that are scandalous and simplistic, then we're going to resemble simplistic and scandalous countries. And if we play games that are filled with integrity and complexity and all the rest, we're going to be a more thriving country. America at its height had its national pastime as baseball. America today, you'd say its national pastime is what? Maybe football, maybe some, but America's a little bit on the decline from where we were before. We need to make America great again. Before we go, I know we're running late. I don't care. I'm getting to Trump at McDonald's. President Trump has now officially worked at McDonald's for about 15 minutes longer than Kamala Harris. Here he is at the drive-thru.
But I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Mr.
Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so much for everything you're doing.
I can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Phenomenal. And the key here is that one line: "You are not ordinary." That line. This is an insight of C.S. Lewis and a number of Christians. You are not ordinary. He says, "Oh, what you do for the ordinary people, you're not. Nobody's an ordinary person. We're individuals. Every man is my master. I can learn from him." That's not just a nice little platitude to make the poor masses feel better about themselves. That is a fact, Jack. Okay, and Trump seems to really believe that. You saw it when the Marine's hat got blown off as Trump was mounting the airplane or the helicopter, and he leans down, puts the guy's hat on his head. Didn't even think about it. Why? Because this is a man, this Marine, this is a man. Trump's not better than this guy. He's got a different job. In some ways, he's got a more important job, or at least a more prominent job. But nobody is just ordinary. And no work is just ordinary. All work can be extraordinary if you consecrate that work, especially to God. But if you treat that work with integrity and you recognize the role that it plays in our country. You know, this is a great troll because Kamala says she worked at McDonald's and there's no evidence she did. But it's also, it really hits her campaign. It hits the Democrats, specifically on labor, where Republicans are doing better now than we used to, and Democrats are doing worse. The Democrat view is that working at McDonald's, that's below you. That's below us. Working at McDonald's, picking grapes in fields, cleaning houses, that's below us. We don't want to do that. That's why we got to bring in all the foreigners. That's jobs for them. These are jobs Americans won't do. Never be too good to do work. I hear people, they criticize, baristas or something. I love my barista. My barista does a good service for me, does honest work. Much more honest work than many people who work white-collar jobs. And there's honest work in white-collar jobs too. Some jobs the Americans won't do. What a disgusting view of labor. What a disgusting view of work. There are 6.8 million U.S. men in their prime working years right now who are not employed and are not seeking employment. There are a lot of Americans who should be working, who maybe want to be working but have despaired of it, or who need a little encouragement. And Trump is saying, hey, I'm going to work this job. I think he had a great time. He trained up on that job for 5 minutes before he went to the window. He did a good job at it. He seemed to enjoy it. And this is the other thing. He sincerely loves McDonald's. And as someone who also sincerely loves McDonald's, I totally get it. This guy, there's nothing inauthentic about that. He's not faking it. He's not faking his love of Big Macs. He's not faking his love of American labor. And ordinary Americans, even some of whom have funny accents and call themselves ordinary people. Trump says you're not ordinary, you're extraordinary. And if you recognize that, if you don't have this plutocratic view that the Democrats have adopted, if you recognize we can get every American engaged, that's the only way we're going to make our country great again. That is a persuasive message. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.
The question everyone in America is asking,
am I racist?
Make those moves.
Get a DailyWire Plus membership to see Am I Racist?
This is all I have. Did you want to?
I can help you guys out.
Yeah.
Go to amирacist.com and sign up now.
I've been told because I'm a white male, kind of at the top of the pile, how do I get down from the top?
I don't think you necessarily can.
How do we get past all the talk about racism?
We have to love each other.
Well, it can't be that simple. How do we get to a point of racial harmony? It's good to talk to you. Mm-hmm. We're still on a journey, all of us together.
I think you got some journeying to do.
Just talk to me about the statistics. We have an epidemic.
20 million crimes a year, 6,000, 7,000 hate crimes. No, there's no epidemic.
Why are we talking about statistics? This is not a matter of statistics.
Well, you asked me about the statistics.
Am I Racist? Coming to Daily Wire Plus on October 28th. Rated PG-13.